हेलो दोस्तों, अस्सलाम वालेकुम। वेलकम टू माय यूट्यूब चैनल टेक क्रिएटिव। तो आज मैं आपको फर्मवेयर की अपडेट के बारे में बताने जा रहा हूँ। A firmware update is a software program used to update the firmware in these devices. For example, a user could download a firmware update for a network router that enhances its capabilities or fixes an issue. Firmware updates are available from hardware manufacturers. In some cases, computer enthusiast websites create firmware updates to give a device even more capabilities than the manufacturer intend. Note: third-party updates third-party updates are often not supported by the manufacturers. Firmware is a what is firmware? Firmware क्या है? Firmware is data that is stored on a computer or other hardware devices, ROM, read-only memory that provide instructions on how that device should operate. Unlike normal firmware cannot be enhanced. Unlike normal software, firmware cannot be changed or deleted by an end user without using special programs and remains on that device whether it's on or off. So here's questions about how do I update the firmware on my router. Tips: make sure you have all other ideas and recommendations before restoring to a firmware update on your home network router. Router firmware update may not resolve issues with a computer that cannot connect to your network. However, it could resolve other miscellaneous issues such as problem with UPnP, random disconnects, and other router feature issues. And here are some tips. You need to be able to enter your router setup to update the router firmware. If you do not know the router username and password, you cannot complete the steps below. For help entering the router setup, see. So all firmware updates should be downloaded through the manufacturer of your router and saved to your computer. With most network routers, the firmware update will end with bin and should be saved to a place that easy to remember like your desktop. After the file is downloaded, open your router setup and locate the firmware upgrade section. The picture shown shows an example of the firmware upgrade section listed under the administration on a link says firmware. So here is that this is. दोस्तों आज की वीडियो के लिए इतना ही। फिर मिलेंगे नेक्स्ट वीडियो में, तब तक के लिए अल्लाह हाफिज़।